What's going on, YouTube? My name is Rainviculus, and today I present to you something I like to call free information. Information that was required through both experience with the FPS genre and the observation of those around me, in which case those around me being my fellow comrades. Rainbow Six Siege is a game that perfectly represents how much power is in information. Tom Clancy said himself, "Life is about learning. When you stop learning, you die." Now, replace the word life with Rainbow Six Siege. Rainbow Six Siege is about learning. When you stop learning, you die. Saying you die is also a loose term because that can be applied to both your in-game death and also the failure of the objective. Because think about it, when you fail to locate the objective using your camera drone, or you fail to appropriately secure the area around the objective, it can mean the difference between your success and your failure. I, for one, am a victim to these circumstances, wasting resources securing one side of the objective when in fact the enemy has breached the opposite side, or even worse, has breached from right above you. Or when nobody on your team, including yourself, can find the objective and all of your drones get destroyed, therefore making your job 3 times harder, because now not only do you have to find the objective but also make sure you don't get your ass handed to you while doing so. The game can give you all the resources, but ultimately it is up to you to make the most of them, and that's where I come in. Whether you be on the offense or the defense, these tactics will not only improve your accuracy when firing weapons and using equipment, but will also allow you to see this game in a way that has never been seen before. In Rainbow Six Siege, it is important to reveal the situation, control the situation, and win the situation than it is to simply be a better gunfighter. First, I want to talk about something called the Art of Misdirection. To really get the most out of your experience with this game, you need to think outside of the box, because if you could do just that, then you will be successful in your mission. A good tactic that I like to use is to breach a door but never actually go through that door. The thing that happens that we are all guilty of when we hear an explosion is we have an overwhelming urge to go investigate, right? Our instincts tell us that whenever a door blows up, the enemy is most likely going to be entering through that door. That's where the trick comes in. Instead of simply breaching the door and going through that door, set up the breach, find a different way of getting in, and detonate that breaching charge. The breaching charge is used to make the other team think that you're there, but in actuality, you're going in through a different route. And while the other team is distracted and confused, you then proceed to paint the walls with their blood, because there's nothing more satisfying than killing those who have no chance to fight back. Another tactic that I like to use with the breach charge is to rappel up to the window, place the charge, and then don't detonate it until you're on top of the roof. Once you're on top of the roof, you then proceed to rappel upside down once you've detonated the breaching charge. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have a short clip here showcasing the tactic that I actually have in mind. And this is what is going to throw most people off. When you rappel upside down from the roof, you will be at the top of the window. The enemy's line of sight is going to be focused solely on the bottom part of the window, and that is a free kill for you, because if you move in just enough so that you can look into the window, the enemy would have to actually try and look for you. But since they expect you to be on the bottom half of the window, all of their attention will be focused on the bottom half of the window, as opposed to the top half of the window. You know what I mean? Always strive for new ideas, because acting out of the conventional scenario will not always work, because the conventional scenario will always come down to who is the better gunfighter. But that's the beauty of Rainbow Six Siege. Each game you play doesn't have to reach that specific conclusion. When you decide to think outside the box and play unconventional instead of treating the game like search and destroy on steroids, you can win simply because you were better at planning ahead, or simply because you knew the map much better than your opponent. While it is expected to seek victory through your gun skill, it is essential to also seek victory through the situation. Do not heavily rely on your gun skill or your teammates' cover fire, because if FPS games have taught me anything, it's that you will not always win the gunfight no matter how accurate you are, and your teammates are not going to be your guardian angels. Therefore, relying on them to save you is a disappointment just waiting to happen. Relying on your gun skill alone will eventually fail you, but relying on both your gun skill and the situation around you can greatly increase your chances of success. The situation will always begin at the beginning of the game, whether you are the offense looking for the objective or the defense attempting to fortify the area around the objective. It's important to know that how well you do either job can contribute to your ultimate success. When using the drone, I advise that you don't specifically look for the objective, but instead look for clues. By clues, I mean look for signs of activity. If you see a dude walking around, then follow him, because more often than not, he can lead you to the objective. or if you hear sounds of the fortifications being made, like traps are being set or doors are being barricaded, then you can assume that the objective is there. There is no such thing as a quiet thunderstorm. You will hear and see the opposing team scrambling to prepare for your oncoming attack, and it is a dead giveaway of where the objective is. Once you find the objective, don't stop there. Try to get a general idea of the kinds of traps they're setting. Do your best to make mental notes about the types of traps that you see so that you can plan around them, as opposed to dealing with the traps as you go along. On the defensive side of things, you want to make sure to keep everything in front of you. Eliminate all but only a couple of ways of getting into the room, therefore narrowing down the amount of entry points that the enemy has at their disposal. Eliminating the amount of entry points keeps everything in front of you, and once everything's in front of you, the game becomes much easier to manage, because you wouldn't want someone to sneak up behind you and slit your throat. I would also advise to barricade as many doors as possible, because these doors can actually be used as a trap. I don't really know the term for this, but they can be a good indicator where the enemy is, you know what I mean? Kinda like if you want to know if someone has entered your bedroom, you would put like a piece of paper in between the door and the door frame, and when that door was open, the paper would fall, and that would tell you that someone at the very least opened your door when you decide to check later on in that day. When the enemy comes across a wooden barricade, they will do one of two things: either punch a hole through it or tear it down entirely. If you happen to go through to that room and you see that the enemy has been fucking around with the barricade you put up, then it could be a decent indicator that there is an enemy nearby. Either that or one of your teammates was the one who brought it down, but better safe than sorry. Assume there is an enemy nearby and take the necessary precautions. Also, putting up more barricades slows them down, because unless the opposing team is a bunch of idiots, they are not going to go sprint into a room, so this will help you in the long run. Now, it's important to know that even though I talk about how crucial it is to win the situation before winning the gunfight, you will get into gunfights regardless. And if you're like me, you played the beta and thought to yourself, what the fuck? Why is it so hard to aim in this game? So obviously I went to the options menu and made some adjustments. Now what I have here is a screenshot of my controller settings. These are in my opinion the best sensitivity settings for being more accurate when firing. The controls for Rainbow Six are a little awkward to use, especially if you're like me. I'm coming from Black Ops 3, I've been playing that a lot. I strongly suggest you either use this layout I give you or keep playing around with the settings, because the default settings or even putting the sensitivity to the absolute maximum can negatively affect your accuracy. And if you haven't already, get some attachments and slap them on your guns. Reducing the muzzle flash, reducing the recoil, and even adding a scope can also help increase your accuracy. Also, choose an operator you like the most and learn how to maximize on its abilities. For example, if you use one of the two riot shield operators, then you should be the first to enter a room to make sure it is safe for your teammates. If you use the pulse operator, then relay the enemy position to your teammates. Tell your teammates where you spotted the enemy and give them updates, and also be aware of your abilities, because as much as they can help you, they can also be hazardous to you and your team's success. For instance, if someone on your team uses the fuse operator, the guy that sticks the tube through the breakable surface and shoots the grenades everywhere, that's all fine and dandy until you are playing the hostage game mode. You know, this scenario actually happened to me. We surround the room and we're ready to break in, and then this jackass decides to use his portable nuclear missiles, shoves that shit through the surface, and the explosions absolutely murder the fucking hostage. And we lose the round. Don't be that guy. Make sure you use your operator properly and don't do anything that could potentially get you killed or lower your team's chance of success. Recognize and dominate the situation, and you will be rewarded with all the renown points you can fucking carry. Accept all challenges, leave them in bandages. Use these tactics to take control of the game and inevitably win the game. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like so others can see, and also subscribe for more videos. This is Rainviculous. Catch y'all later.